Hello, hello, and welcome. We are just going to wait a couple of seconds for everybody to get into the room here. Looks like we're at about 35 participants. I know we had over 200 registered, so I'm just going to give it a couple minutes. Hope everybody's having a great week. The weather's been a little weird in the DC area. It's been hot one day, cold the next. Not sure if it's what's happening here. All right, we're going to officially kick it off. It is 11 o'clock. I want to thank you all for joining us and welcome to the third webinar in this series, Veterans Affairs Acquisition Exchange. My name is Alexa Choi. I am the CEO of Forum and the go-to-market lead for G2 Exchange. Today's event is scheduled from 11 to 12 and it will be recorded. The recording will be distributed after the event. I know invariably somebody will ask if we're going to share the slides. Yes, we will. Just a few things to keep today running smoothly. If you experience any technical issues or have any questions during the program, please reach out to Marianne Brown in the chat. She's going to be happy to assist you. We want today's event to be very interactive. If you think of any questions for today's speakers at any point, you can type them into the Q&A box, which we will be monitoring, and they will be addressed at the end of the webinar. Huge thank you today to our sponsor that made it possible, Visual Connections. Now I'd like to introduce you to the sponsor for today's event, Pat Lomax, Senior Vice President and Managing Director at Visual Connections.
Thank you, Alexa. As you know, Visual Connections is excited to sponsor today's event. I'm going to quickly go over the agenda for today. For today's agenda, the speakers will discuss first, a view of the overall VA contracting opportunity landscape. Next, personal journeys, how each leader arrived at their role and what inspires them daily. Next, we'll talk about division focus and initiatives, the current priorities shaping their work, and the projects they're most excited about. And last but not least, leadership and engagement, their management style, approach to team building, and strategies for fostering meaningful industry collaboration. This will be followed by a Q&A from the audience. And now I'm going to send it back to you, Alexa, to discuss the VA contracting landscape.
Thank you so much, Pat. Yeah, this is a very exciting time, and I think I speak for the entire industry when I say that 2025 was, at the very least, very disruptive. So the VA has a lot of things happening in 2026, the fiscal year 2026. And I'm just going to kind of run through some things at a very high level, touch down on a couple of things lower level, and then come back up. So if you do have questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out after this webinar. But I wanted to really talk about how the VA does have a 10% increase in budget from 2025 with a new twist to it of really efficiency and focusing on veteran care. So unlike previous years, this budget really includes targeted cuts to non-essential administrative spending and legacy IT to fund high impact technology. So, what does that actually mean? There are three huge buckets of big money, and they are the EHR reboot, which is set at about 3.5 billion. So that whole EHR rollout is happening this year. We've got the infrastructure modernization, which is going to be addressing aging facilities. There's going to be specific focus on readying the facilities for the new systems coming in. And then, of course, the BRAVE program as well, which is bridging the rental assistance for veteran empowerment. That's what BRAVE stands for. So when you actually go one level deeper and look at the innovation and the tech highlights, you're talking about automation and cybersecurity at like a very top level. So really scaling mission aligned IT using AI, and there's 29 million specifically allocated to that, which is 130 increase over the year before, 130%. So we're talking about automating claims decisions to eliminate backlog, triaging digital interactions so veterans get answers faster without human intervention. We've got zero trust architecture, which is 108 increase over the year before. So we want to make sure that the veteran data is very protected against sophisticated cyber threats. Telehealth and remote monitoring. This budget continues to move care out to hospitals and into the home, specifically for rural veterans, using wearable tech and expanded connected care platforms. There are a few, huge vehicles that I think people have their eyes on, and that is CCN Next Gen. And that's the third party administration for medical and dental networks. And that's the single largest recompete in VA history. So I know that the industry has their eye on that. The T4NG2, people are kind of looking at when is that vehicle going to get an ATP, the authority to proceed. And I think I heard somebody say that somebody at the VA had announced that it's April. But that's what I heard yesterday. It's kind of like big rumor mill on the street. I know the GovCom community likes to talk. And then the IHT 2.0 full operational launch for that. We're going to talk a teeny bit about the 9 SDVOs teams that won in late 2025. So that's more on the professional services and health system transformation side of the house. And strategic shifts and modernization resets really, there's a lot happening. The Cedar tasks are going to be sunsetting, and there's going to be a lot moving over to the Spruce IDIQ, and that's really fully prioritizing really high fidelity UX UI capabilities. So those teams are going to be ramping up for that. Going back to what I had promised, I'm going to just run through all quick a reminder of who the 9 primes are for IHT 2.0. You have adaptive HTG, ability, National Government Services, NGS, CR7, Titania Solutions Group, ZLO, which is a joint venture, Dash Federal, Mine Sites, and Prometheus Federal Services. There's a lot of talk within OIT of the VA kind of breaking into big portfolios to really manage the different things that are happening. And there's some speculation about what those portfolios are. I would say, since this is not confirmed, keep your eye on OIT and what they have planned. And they're going to be putting out those notices kind of early and often to keep everybody appraised. And really, for a strategy note towards the end of my little TED talk here, is that really the VA, and comes directly from the secretary, is looking at AI as a supplement, not a replacement. So this means purchasing plans are shifting away from automated chatbots towards decision support tools that empower clinical staff with real-time alerts. So that was the conclusion of my overview. So now on to today's panel. So I get the pleasure of announcing who is speaking today. Very exciting. Hopefully I don't mispronounce anybody's last names. So Mr. Greg Giddens, he is going to be our moderator for today. He's fantastic and wonderful, has a deep background in the VA as well. Thank you so much for being here today. And then we have Miss Anne-Marie Vasconcelos. Yes. Director of Procurement Service F, the VA Technology Acquisition Center, lovingly known as the TAC. Mr. Matt Truex, Contracting Officer, Procurement Service F, also from the TAC. And Mr. Mike Marone, Contracting Officer, Procurement Service F, also from the TAC. Thank you all so much for being here, enabling collaboration between industry and the government. I will go on mute now. I appreciate you all.
Well, thanks, Alexa. Thanks for the rundown. And you did mention the VA's Community Care Network, which is a huge recompete. Just wanted to do a shout out to Laura Scott and the team. They've been really doing, I think, a great job engaging with the industry. They've got an industry day coming up next week. But that is certainly one of the largest recompetes around. And also want to do a shout out to the team that we have with us today from the TAC, Anne-Marie and Matt and Mike. I had the opportunity to work with Anne-Marie when I was at the VA back early on, and it was great to get to know her and see her in action in first person. And I remember, I don't know if they still do, they used to do the Clean Plate Award. And Anne-Marie she knocked that thing out almost every year. And that refers to getting rid of all your actions by the end of the FY. I don't know how she always kept pulling that off, but she was the Clean Plate winner for many years. And I do sincerely appreciate the work that the TAC does, having worked with them closely when I was at the VA and seeing the work they continue to do. And really all the procurement folks, not just at the VA, but across the federal government. Because I do believe their work is so important to build that bridge between private industry and the mission needs of the government. And I would challenge anyone to think about what our government does and anything of significance it does either to our citizens or on behalf of our citizens or for its citizens that's not enabled by private industry. And for that to happen, you need really strong people, good thinkers, good leaders working in procurement again to help transition and make sure that those requirements come out, and then industry can understand them, propose back, and then actually support the mission. So first, I want to say thanks to the TAC team, not just for joining us, but what you do every day in and out. As Alexa said, we'll start with a couple questions for each one of you. And Emery, if you don't mind, we'll start with you and we'll run down kind of 3 questions. And then Matt, we'll turn to you. And then Mike, we'll turn to you. So Emery, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey and how you wound up at the TAC?
Sure. I've been in government contracting now 22 plus years, which is kind of crazy to say. I started with the Department of Defense with the Army at Fort Monmouth at CCOM, the Communications Electronic Command. I came to the TAC in 2009 after Fort Monmouth was slated to be closed. I actually started here. I had been a warranted CO back at CCOM. I came to the TAC as a contract specialist because it was a very small organization. I was here back when there was only 25 people, and now we're up to 300 people. So I've watched the evolution here at the TAC. So I started as a specialist, and then I got my warrant, and I ran a team, and then I guess it was 2010. I think I became a division director, and in my role as a division director here at the TAC, I worked on T4 for a really long time, the original T4. I was involved with the recompete to make it T4 next gen, and then I moved over and I've been in Division F for the last couple of years. And our division here is mainly enterprise license agreements, and we do a lot of hardware buys, and we do a couple best values. Since T4 has been under protest, we've been doing more best values on GSA. So that's what we're doing.
Well, it's quite the journey, and you were one of the plank holders from what I remember when CCOM was ending, and you all came over to the TAC. So that was a great, that was great, certainly for the TAC and the VA to have that capability come over. You talked a little bit about your organization and a couple of things they focus on. Anything else you want to share about the organization and some of the focus of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so the TAC as a whole does pretty much the majority of IT for VA. That can be anything from small laptop hardware buys, individual software licenses, to obviously large scale, EHRM, the electronic health record for, the entire country and all of our nation's veterans. So we handle the breadth of IT. As things are changing in the IT space, when I started in 2009, there was a very clear division between what was IT and what were like health products. And the most squishy you would get would maybe be an MRI machine, but it was obvious we wouldn't buy that here. But obviously, as time has gone on and IT has been placed into products all over, including our refrigerators, the line of what is and isn't IT has become very fuzzy of late. So sometimes we procure things that have been a little outside of our wheelhouse, but they're getting more and more IT related. A lot of things are becoming AI enabled. So this is actually, I feel like in the last year and looking into the future, we're going to be expanding our mission at the TAC and taking on a lot of different roles, and there'll be a lot of having to relook at what is within our mission scope. But generally speaking, if it's IT, we do it here. And like I said, our division, with Mike and Matt, is that we do a lot of the large scale enterprise license agreements, things like Red Hat for all of VA, Salesforce, and things of that nature.
That's a great point about it used to be, and it wasn't that far ago, not that long ago, that you really could separate IT and healthcare and do that pretty quickly, but not so much anymore. So yeah, that line has gotten pretty fuzzy. Is something IT or is it healthcare? I think sometimes the answer is yes. It is. It's both. What are some of the initiatives or priorities or things that you're focused on within your division or even as part of the larger TAC team?
So in terms of initiatives, I mean, there's a lot of there was a lot of re-looking at contracts and efficiencies over this last year. There's a renewed sense of getting the best price for the government. So we put a lot of emphasis on trying to do our best to achieve discounts for our OI&T customer. That's where we've put a lot of emphasis, and obviously how to incorporate new tools that we can utilize for efficiencies, like various, we're starting into the AI space of utilizing AI and rolling that out and training our people on that so that we can, be more efficient. Obviously, the goal is always to buy what will best suit our veteran at the best price for the American taxpayer. Going all the way back to when I started with the government in 2003, that was the mission, was that, as an 1102, your job is to get what your customer needs at the best price for the taxpayer. And as long as you do that, you're pretty much in good shape. And I think, for all of the ways that contracting changes over the years, that maintains to be our mission. And that's what we're doing here. And obviously, as we've been returned to the office in this last year, just working to get people back into that groove of in-person collaboration. And we still have some people that have to be remote because they were hired in other parts of the country. So obviously they can't just pop into New Jersey. So, incorporating them into our team. So that's been a lot of the focus for this year, is getting back into that mix of in-person work.
Yeah, and all those interpersonal skills on dynamics, and sometimes we call them the soft skills, but actually I think they're more difficult than what we call the hard skills. I love the way you drew it back to when you first came in, and it's that balance of getting what the mission needs against getting best value for the taxpayer. And you're right; those are two great waypoints as we go forward. Well, thanks for sharing for that, and we'll certainly be back with you with some more questions as we go through. But Matt, I'll turn it to you. And your bio, all the bios have been out on the LinkedIn and the web about the event. So people have, I'm sure, already reviewed that. And certainly when I was looking at it, it was interesting to see you had a turn as a CEO for EHRM. And now you're got selected to head up government-wide HR solution. So you must be kind of an adrenaline junkie or something. But could you tell us a little bit about your journey and about yourself and how you wound up at the TAC?
Sure. Thanks, Greg, and thanks for having me. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a glutton for punishment or not, but I like to keep things interesting. We'll say that. But as far as a little background about me, I was born and raised in a short town in New Jersey. I came into contracting, federal contracting, right out of college. I didn't know it at the time, but the Fort Monmouth was there recruiting at a college fair at our campus, and I saw Army at the top, and I avoided it. I thought they were recruiting. Come to find out, a couple months later, I applied for a job on USA Jobs and got into the intern contracting program at Fort Monmouth, which obviously turned into a pretty successful federal career for me. About 20 years now, federal contracting experience overall, 16 of those here at the VA. As you mentioned, I had a turn with the HRM that was from really concept, writing of the DNF through negotiations, tenuous negotiations and award, and several years early on in execution. Dating back to Fort Monmouth, my 3 years spent there, just over 3 years, mainly supported aerial surveillance platforms. And at the time, obviously, those were supporting, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and the Global War on Terror. So, again, some very interesting moments. Yeah, but then I spent a short stint over with the Defense Health Agency. I did transition from 3 or 4 years of running EHRM to support their electronic health record portfolio, and some efforts there. Ultimately, returning back to VA.
Super. Yeah, that's quite the journey. And then going out and coming back in, I think that's really helps you get a broader perspective about what's going on.
Absolutely.
So give us a little bit about your organization and where the Procurement Service F and kind of some of the work that you're focused on.
Sure. I think Emery did a very good job covering, obviously, at a high level. Primarily IT procurement. Generally, it's going to be anything over $100,000. I think that may be changing. We do see work under that threshold as well, but that's always been kind of the line in the sand. I did want to highlight in terms of our organization as well. It's not just contracting. We certainly have highly experienced and qualified contracting professionals, but also project management subject experts, pricing. We have engineers, really to support the full gamut and provide, whatever we can give to our program support our customers as well. So I think that's an area that helps differentiate the TAC, is those different levels of expertise across the organization.
Matt, I think that's a great.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, just a quick interruption. Sorry. I think it's a great point to bring out about the pricing and engineering staff that you all have at the TAC. I really think that's a great point you made, that it helps round out the support that the TAC can give to OI&T and really help ensure packages, requirements, solicitations are well framed out, and the government's in a good position to move forward. So, but sorry for the interruption. That was a great point.
No, it's quite all right. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, it takes a village, as we all know who's experienced it. Anne-Marie did mention some of the work, that I'm responsible for. I think she mentioned the human resources sustainment effort. Because of my involvement with that, right now I'm working more in an advisory role, consultant role, supporting OMB's acquisition. They're spearheading that acquisition to modernize all of human resources IT across the federal landscape, to hopefully get all the federal government on the same system. So that is an active and ongoing solicitation. Another one of the major efforts that I'm currently supporting is the external provider scheduling effort. I know you mentioned before tying in the community care contract. So this is similar in that we're gaining access to the community care provider scheduling grids to give our schedulers immediate access, insights into where the care that the veterans need is available. And trying to get those appointments as soon as possible to help reduce wait times, and really expand upon our modes of care, right? Which includes both VA care is more than just inside VA, right? It's our external providers who are connected to our network.
That's a great, the external scheduling, the Deputy Secretary did a couple of LinkedIn posts about care in the community, and one was trying to make, Matt, just that clarification and distinction that care at the VA is not just within the brick and mortar of the VA or even within its telehealth network, but it's also partnering with those providers out in the community and the networks that have been put in place. And so you're being able to access those schedules and those grids to help, make sure that the wait times are pushed down as low as we can get them is really important. So that's another really key program for the VA. Any other programs or parties, Matt, that you wanted to touch on before I turn over to Mike?
One that's up and coming a little bit. We just released an RFI. Actually, the RFI is closed. Evaluating responses is for bidirectional image exchange, medical image records. Also, again, right from the community to help pull those records in, right, and have those seamless. A lot of times, it's difficult to make sure that VA is getting those medical imaging, those reports from our community providers. So looking into pull systems that are capable of connecting to all of those, commercial providers and being able to ingest and share those medical records.
Excellent. I'm glad you touched on that, and we may, when we get into Q&A, we may touch back on the RFIs. I know a lot of times, since now I'm on the other side of the table, industry sometimes has a lot of questions about responding to RFIs, and does it really help the government? Is it worthwhile for them? Is it worthwhile for the government, or is it just kind of checking a box? So let's just put a pin in that. We may come back to that during the Q&A and talk a little bit about RFIs. All right. So Mike, you're up. And again, a great, the folks that had a chance to look at your bio, a great journey for you as well. And we chatted a few minutes ago. Mike had done some work down in the sim school in Orlando, and 1,000 years ago, I did some work in the sim world, and I was working for the Air Force. And it's really great to see really the paths that you all have gone through to get to the TAC and the experience and expertise that you bring with you. So Mike, thanks again for joining us, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how you wound up at the TAC.
Yeah, and thank you, Greg. And real quick, I want to say hi to Rick Houston. I saw that he just said hello in the message. He's been here and conducted some very worthwhile training for us with GSA.
Rick's
so
at
yeah, I was
GSA,
also
right?
yeah,
Is that
yep.
if I remember correctly? Yeah.
So yeah, I was born and raised right here in Monmouth County, local to where I started in 2006, while still in college, as part of the Student Career Experience Program, better known as SCEP, at Fort Monmouth, CCOM, Communications Electronics Command. Was there for a year doing that until I entered the intern program there from 2007 to 2009, supporting the warfighter, several different efforts such as Blue Force tracking, rapid response, which was a big IDIQ at the time. So then we were under the base relocation and closure at Fort Monmouth, so everybody had a choice to make, right? Most of the mission was moving to Aberdeen Proving Grounds, where, you know, being local to the area, that was not something, not a place I was looking to go. So luckily the VA stood up the TAC in 2009 and provided an opportunity for all of us here to leverage our contracting expertise and stay in the area and provide, you know, crucial service to the VA. So I started here at the TAC in 2010. I was here for roughly a year, and then I took had a very exciting opportunity in Orlando to support the Army at PO Stry. So I went down there for 2 years, supporting simulation and training for soldiers, mainly the Joint Multinational Readiness Center out of Hohenfels, Germany, better known as the JMRC. Then, as you know, and most people know, there's no place like home. So 2012, I took an opportunity back here at the TAC, and I've been here ever since, and very thankful for the TAC and everything we do here, and you know, supporting the VA, you know, in that mission. And so various roles since 2012 until receiving my warrant in 2024. So I'm now a contracting officer here at TAC.
Great, and as I said before, it is sincere. It is great to have the team up at the TAC, and it is interesting whether the folks that stayed in New Jersey after the CCOM, you and Matt went and dipped your toes elsewhere, but then came back to the TAC. It has a pretty big draw for people in the New Jersey area, which
Absolutely.
is really great to see. So Anne-Marie and Matt talked a little bit about the work at the TAC and in the procurement division. Anything else you want to add about the focus of your work there?
Yeah, no, it's been covered. Nothing to add other than, you know, what I work on is basically, in addition to that, some local level efforts here supporting, you know, several VAMCs, VISNs, such things as telehealth needs for veterans, communication badges within the VMACs for nurses, and other software tools that help scheduling and certain things within those, you know, regions and VA medical centers nationwide.
Yeah, that's actually what makes the work happen at the local level, though. Those things that you're doing, supporting those medical centers and the VISNs. So thanks for the work that you're doing there. I do want to have a couple questions, and then I did pop in the chat for all those participating. Please send us in any questions you have. I notice a lot of people are sending their info and LinkedIn, which is great. But also, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat for us. But I want to hit a couple of things before we turn kind of to the more structured Q&A session. And you mentioned some of these before, but I want to just see if there's anything else you want to touch on about any opportunities that may be coming that you want to make sure your industry is paying attention to.
Yeah, and so I have a requirement for FOIA Freedom of Information Act compliance that will be hitting the street sometime in early February on GSA, and that's in support of OIT's Compliance Risk and Remediation Division. So I would be on the lookout for that on GSA sometime early to mid-February. And that is just support services for the VA FOIA office. So they're really looking for experienced people there to support that.
Yeah. And the VA gets a horde of FOIA requests, so I'm sure there's a lot of focus on that opportunity and that work inside the VA.
Yeah.
Matt or Anne-Marie or Mike, anything else, any other opportunities that you'd want to highlight?
Yeah, thanks, Greg, for the question. I don't really want to get into specific. I don't have too many specific actions or opportunities to share, but I did really want to highlight, for the vendor community who's on here today, what are some places to get that information from? You often hear those questions and the difficulties of, trying to stay abreast of what opportunities are actually out there. So if folks aren't already aware, the acquisitiongateway.gov website has a lot of good information, and there's a tool there called the Forecast of Contracting Opportunities tool. That lists all reportable opportunities over $25,000 across federal agencies, so not just VA, but gives a real good landscape, bird's eye view of all the types of work that are out there. It's filterable, so vendors get a good sense there. And also, always suggest utilizing sam.gov, right, for I think you touched on it, Greg, for requests for information. I think we'll probably get into that topic a little bit more. But sam.gov has requests for information, market research requests, sources sought notices, active and open solicitations for vendors to review and bid on. And the TAC utilizes, I think we'll get into this again a little bit later, some schedules that we tend to utilize depending upon what we're procuring, but NASA Soup and the GSA schedule tools, for the vendors who are on those, obviously we post our market research requests, again, RFIs and solicitations to those vehicles. It's a good opportunity if you're not actively monitoring to make sure that you are to stay abreast of what opportunities are out there or upcoming.
Right. Matt, thanks so much for sharing that info so that they'll know where to go. And I know one of the things that Mr. Jeff Neal has been working on is the forecasting capability, and I think teaming more closely with Acquisition Gateway and getting things loaded there, kind of as part of that GSA portal. And I know that's not easy work because it's collaboration between you all and OINT to understand what's coming and kind of do that projection. It's not just something that you all can do by yourselves. It requires that teamwork with OAIT. Anything else anyone would want to highlight about an opportunity?
No, unfortunately, I will give a heads up for people. Unfortunately, due to the extensive government shutdown at the beginning of the fiscal year, we do know that our customers are slightly behind in getting us requirements. Usually by now in January, we have a lot of things for award in the second and third quarter. And obviously without people here to prepare packages, we haven't seen that. So I would advise everybody that this is just based on many years of experience and having survived 3 other long government shutdowns, is that I would expect there will probably be a large crunch of work that you will see in March. Between March and May, I'm expecting to be very busy to get us to where we need to be by the end of the fiscal year. So I would just prepare people for that, because right now we don't have as many new opportunities that I normally would have at this point in the year, but I anticipate that they will be coming.
Yeah, so everyone, you should hear what Anne-Marie's telling you. That's the voice of experience, right? So if you think about what happened during the shutdown and bolus of work getting pushed to the right, you were to be checking your calendars and getting ready for the ride that's going to happen in late spring, early summer. Thanks. That's good. That's good insights, Anne-Marie. Thanks for sharing that. I do want to go back and touch on, Matt, something that you had mentioned about SOUP and GSA, and Mike already gave a shout out to a GSA person that's joined us. And at least to me from the outside, it's been really rewarding to kind of see the relationship growing. There's always been a relationship between the VA and the TAC and GSA, but I think over the past year or two, I think it's only been strengthened. So could you all share about some of the work you're doing with GSA, NASA Soup, and Matt, you talked about some of the schedules used, but certainly this administration has a focus not just on the efficiency, but consolidation, and is positioning GSA to take a larger role in supporting agencies across different procurements and really trying to look at how can they best maximize and make efficient use of existing schedules and contracts.
Yeah, so as you said, that's a push of this administration, is to try to, I don't know if centralize is the right word, but try to, utilize the vehicles that we have as best as we can. I mean, the TAC has always utilized GSA, and frankly, with T4 ceiling issues and being under protest, we've been using GSA a lot in the last year and a half. They're great vehicles. It's a way to get to a vendor pool. I think what's really critical for people to be aware in this environment, there is an emphasis of trying to use those. They've always been considered best in class vehicles, and we've always wanted to use them. So it's not really doing business any differently for us than what it's really not. There's nothing in that EO that's really anything outside the scope of what we've always done. What I would really strongly recommend to people is when you reply to market research requests, that you identify what vehicles you are under, because the preference is always to try to utilize a vehicle. Obviously, we can, for financial reasons, and also because we can use streamlined procedures. It just makes a lot of things easier, and the procurements go faster. When you use those vehicles, we're allowed to create less documents, internal contracting documents, which I know doesn't mean anything to the vendors, but it means a lot to us.
Yes.
And it shrinks the timeline it takes to do a requirement. So when you reply to a market research, any kind of request for information, I strongly encourage you to put what schedules, which vehicles you have a contract with. Because if we get 2 or more people that are on a vehicle, we could just target that vehicle. So that helps us, because usually what we're having to do is manually look people up. And sometimes if it's not easy to find out if you're on that vehicle, like we might miss you. So I would strongly encourage you to highlight that. And for NASA Soup, we've been using NASA Soup since the TAC was stood up. That's mainly where we go for all of our hardware and software purchases.
Super. Yeah, and that relationship, I think, as with the GSA one, has really been productive and good, and allows you to accelerate, the process in a way that if you had to do everything with standalone vehicles, it would take longer, and as you said, Emery, require more paperwork. So Emery, you touched on RFIs, and Matt touched on it. So let's talk about RFIs a little bit. And I do hear sometimes from industry that they sometimes struggle, and they make decisions on should they respond to an RFI or not, and do they really get read, and do they matter? I love if either one of you or all or some combo could share any thoughts about RFIs, and try to help the industry better understand why they're posted and what happens to them when you all get them back. And Emery, thanks again for the tidbit you put about the industry when they respond, to make sure they include all their vehicles and which schedules they're on.
We'll probably pass this off, but personally, Greg, I would encourage vendors to respond to RFIs and sources sought notices. One, to express their interest and asking appropriate questions. If they ask the right questions, it may help shape or refine our requirements. Sometimes those things may not be fully flushed out. So knowing what capabilities are out there, risks and concerns and mitigations, we can build into our contracts. I think we're all better off. I would say often that their responses are going to help shape the acquisition strategy. Frankly, if we get limited responses to RFIs, we might not be targeting the right schedules, schedule contracts if they exist. Might not be targeting the right companies or right solutions. So it really does provide a lot of value to us, from my personal experience, to get those responses in. And I think it's going to help shape, hopefully, those acquisition strategies to those vendors that are interested and have showed interest.
Yeah, and I do want to emphasize that we do read all of them. I mean, we make them read all of them. So, we get, if we put it out there and you respond to it, we not only make sure they're read by the customer, but they have to give us a report on everything that you wrote. So they are read. I think what people maybe get frustrated on an industry, and I can understand this, is that it can feel like it goes into a black hole, because there is a point in which we have a lot of communication with industry, and then there's a point where that door kind of closes because you start to move into the source selection sensitive area. So once we get those responses from the market research, we may be finalizing the requirement, tweaking our evaluation plan, finalizing acquisition strategy. We really can't then be communicating with industry in the same way that we are during the market research phase, because a lot of those decisions are being made, and once you disclose to one, you have to disclose to all. So people in procurement particularly are always very cautious about protecting procurement integrity. And we start moving into drafting a solicitation, it really does become like the veil comes down. And I think sometimes people don't always anticipate on the industry side how long it takes to go from evaluating market research, refining a requirement, setting an acquisition strategy, and then releasing a solicitation. So it can feel like nothing has happened, but we might be doing 6 months of a lot of hard work, and then all of a sudden the solicitation comes out. We do try, at least here at the TAC, we are required what we call close the loop. So if we've posted an RFI, we always make sure that our specialists go back at a certain point and announce what's happening to that requirement, whether that be that, hey, we've decided it's going to go under GSA Schedule 70, please look there, or, oh, okay, we're not going to proceed with this requirement because priorities have changed, or whatever the situation may be. So we do try to do that here at the TAC. If you have any procurements that you've been following, my best recommendation is to follow up with the specialist who's on the RFI. They're the people that have the most information. If we tell you, okay, we're working on it, but we don't have anything to say, unfortunately, that's just the facts, that we're probably in the process of finalizing the documents and the strategy in a way that we can't share yet. But we do try to always close the loop. So please, feel free to always follow up with the CO or the specialist, and we'll get you the information that we can provide.
Anything you want to add on the RFIs?
Yeah, no, just to echo what Matt and Emery had said, strongly encourage, if there's an RFI out there, for industry members to respond to it. It's going to help the direction of our acquisition strategy, as well as something we are actively looking for responses. It's not just a check the box thing that we're doing. So if you see an RFI, that may be an opportunity for you to let us know and help us go in the right direction.
Yeah, and it's as you said, it's a great way for the VA to find out what's happening out in the market, right? Potential solutions, and maybe different ways to think about the problem set, understand what vehicles are available, what different companies are on. So I just echo that as Mike did, that those responses can really help shape the VA's understanding and kind of the way to move forward. And Emery, I love the way you talked about in the beginning, there's this broad kind of funnel and a lot of communication, but as you get further along in the process, close to the source selection activity, that funnel and that kind of mode of communication or availability of communication gets shorter and tighter and more controlled. And you're right, sometimes the industry forgets about that or didn't really understand what's happening, and they're like, well, hey, I used to hear back and have a chat, and now it seems like nobody's responding. And it's, as you said, there's a lot of work goes on that industry doesn't see, and not just work, a lot of approvals and back and forth and questioning. I mean, it's it is a process in itself. So I think that was a great reminder for us about how communication does change throughout the process. One more just quick note, and then I'm going to turn it to Pat to moderate kind of the Q&A section, although this may have felt like it was a Q&A session. But I do want to go back to Mike, and thanks for pointing out the RIC zone. And so, Rick, I just want to say thanks to you and the partnership from GSA. And Mike said you've done some great training with them. And I just thanks for your collaboration with the VA and making that partnership really strong. So thanks for what you and the GSA team are doing. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Pat. I've had some more questions, but I want to make sure that Pat can address any of the questions that we may be getting in from folks that are participating. So Pat, over to you, my friend. It's great to
Thank
see
you.
you as always.
Thank you. You as well. So one of our, first question that I'll start with is from Benita Bottom. Will GSA's move to bring IT products and technology acquisitions in-house impact the TAC work?
Not at this time. I mean, my understanding, I mean, our IT buy here is about $8 billion a year. And my understanding is I don't know that GSA has the capacity to take our work. I mean, like I said, we utilize the GSA vehicles. I mean, in the future, I don't know. I mean, I hope I have a job, but maybe then GSA will hire me. No. But at this time, I don't know of any decision to move VA work directly to GSA to buy directly.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. And trust me, the VA needs you. We hope you don't get scooped up by GSA, Anne Marie. The next one is coming in from Bobby Gutierrez. Hopefully I pronounced your last name correctly. Can you provide web address for forecast? Someone mentioned the forecast.
Yeah, I think that was what Matt had mentioned, I think, about the acquisition gateway.
I'll put it in the chat. I got you guys. Don't worry. I'll put it there. I got
Great.
you.
Thanks, Alexa.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexa.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is actually from an anonymous attendee, but we welcome you, attendee. There are so many RFIs and recompetes, but not hearing timeline, which makes it difficult for us to plan. You know, example, OIT budget tracking tool and health advisory services. Any updates on those?
I don't have any updates on those specifically. I do understand what that person is saying. I can tell you that in the last year, a lot of these procurements, this is true with any administration. They all come in and they all have their own priorities and they all have their ways in which they want to look at things and do things. And so there's always a relooking at requirements. And I'm pretty sure that's the case with that OIT budget tracking thing. I know it's been looked at. The thing is, we don't always know the timelines. A lot of times the responses to the RFI can dictate that. We can think we're going in one way and we might get responses that put us in a completely different way. All I would tell you is if it's something, my advice to industry, because I know you have to choose with your dollars where you spend your time. I know it's a lot of work and money to reply to an RFI. My advice to you is to prioritize what's important to you. If that's work you really want and you want to have eyes on and you want to have access to that information, I strongly encourage you to respond. I don't think it's beneficial for anybody for people to respond to 100 RFIs and you know you would never actually compete with that work. And if all you're going to do is submit to us your marketing material and not an actual response to our questions and requests, it doesn't help us and it doesn't help you. So I would really recommend that you look at the procurement, and if this is something that you want, whether to act as a prime or on a team, I would respond to it because your information is important. And once we know that you're somebody who's responded, like I said, we always do a close the loop. If you've responded to us, we try to get back to everybody who responded to it. So if you didn't respond at all and you think it went into a black hole, it might be that you're just no longer being communicated with because you weren't one of our lists of interested vendors. So I really encourage you to make those decisions, those good business decisions. And, if it's worth your time, put in the effort and give us a real response, because it doesn't help us when people just submit a brochure. We'll look at it, but we don't do much with it. So.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, Anne Marie. Industry, I hope you're hearing the collaboration here because it's great.
I thought it'd be valuable just to add on just a little bit to that.
Absolutely.
Generally RFIs will have a Q&A period. Not a bad idea if vendors are interested in the potential timeline, for an award, if it's, something that's needed this fiscal year. I think a good key to that is when the R5 was released. If it's released earlier on in the fiscal year, it's a high likelihood that the requirement is probably needed that fiscal year. But certainly an opportunity for vendors to ask those questions during the RFI themselves to try and get a sense of the timeline of the acquisition. It may not be known, but there might be a target. And as Anne-Marie mentioned, you can always reach out to the individual who posted the RFI, the contract specialist or contracting officer for information that they're able to share.
Matt, sorry, Pat, if I can just hop in. Matt, that's a great point. And I think it's probably a good time to make sure everybody knows, the contracting officer is not sitting in a corner, with a magic wand making all these decisions about timelines and requirements and when something's coming out and priorities. It is a collaborative effort in the IT world, in particular between the TAC and OI&T, and then, of course, leadership. And as Emery said, administrations come in and they all do this. They all establish their own priorities and want to kind of look and see where resources are being applied. So I think sometimes I hear from industry, the CEO is just, won't tell me what the answer is, or they say they don't know. A lot of times they don't know. I mean, it is not something just the CEO can do on their own. It is, and I think it was Matt Erd that talked about it takes a village. There's a village working on this. The CEO is most of the time kind of the face on the procurement aspect, but there's a lot of people working on trying to figure out what the priority is going to be and what programs are moving forward and when.
Got it. Thanks, Greg. Here's another question. I think it's a pretty good question. Do you use Soup primarily for COTS software license procurements, or also use it for more complex acquisitions such as custom software development implementation and other more holistic IT services?
I mean, we mostly use it for the first. We will use it for the second, but I can tell you from personal experience, the vehicle is not really set up for that. When we've tried to do that, to buy more complex things under Soup, I have run into problems, both with getting a proposal that's usable and then in performance, because Soup is mainly a lot of value-added resellers. It's not primes. So it's like you're kind of going, like, if you have something that requires a lot of customization and you need some kind of like integrator, then you're usually dealing with like a sub of a sub. So it's not always the best vehicle, but there are times in which it has worked. We have done it.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's one last question I see. How is AI being used in analysis and review? It's easy to conduct market research. Now, that's the question.
I wonder, Pat, if this is about using AI for market research instead of
That's
RFIs.
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I was just trying to understand the question.
Yeah.
I know, Anne-Marie, we discussed this, I think, at a different aspect in terms of vendors utilizing AI for their submissions, whether it's to RFIs or proposals. And I think we can share from experience, it's not all it's cracked up to be necessarily. The response you may get from, a ChatGPT style proposal submission loses that human element. It is going to be evaluated by humans. It has to be understood. It has to make sense. So it's not always, the best or easiest means just to rely on AI. I think, we'll say it's a tool in the toolkit to be utilized. So certainly, I think our customers do utilize, AI for a portion of their market research, but I don't think we're at that stage where we fully rely upon AI results for market research purposes.
Correct. I mean, it's still people doing the work.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. I'm not seeing any more questions.
There was a follow-up to the Soup question.
Got it. I see it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean, just the follow-up was that, Anne-Marie, you had talked about that Soup's primary for the COTS kind of software license, but not for the more holistic, complex development work. And then the follow-on question was so if it's not approved for Soup, where would you go for the latter if you wouldn't use Soup for that?
Probably GSA. I mean, it depends on what we're trying to purchase and what kind of software has to be customized. Some customization understood we definitely do, but if we're building a whole system, we're probably looking at it more as a service, and we're going to buy it under GSA.
Yeah, I think you answered the person's question. Ebby M, glad your questions got answered. There's one more. Which office in VA is owning zero trust initiatives?
I'm not familiar with that. Matt or Mike, do you know? I'm not familiar with that. I've heard the term, but I'm not familiar.
I think I glitched out for a second. I apologize, but that's got to be an OI&T's wheelhouse when we're talking about security architecture.
Pat, I noticed in the chat that Mr. Neal put in relating back to the RFIs and AI that the VA is exploring some contract writing system, some new solutions for that, and then part of that might include adding AI to help with functions like market research. So they are exploring. The TAC is. I think that Mr. Neal's point was the TAC is exploring some options on how to best use AI and bring it into the process. So, Mr. Neal, it's great for you to join us. Thanks, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Well, Pat, I had a follow-on question that I want to kind of throw out to our three wonderful panelists to see if there's any kind of any tips on proposals, or is there anything that you think when you like to see more of in a proposal or not seeing a proposal. I mean, I think Marianne was crystal clear, responding to RFIs. They're not really that interested in your marketing brochure. Is there anything else that you all would, based on your experience, kind of offer to industry?
My recommendation is always to really look at the evaluation criteria. Whatever is highlighted in the evaluation criteria is the things that are the most important to the technical team to review. That's where you should put the bulk of your response, or at least the effort to your response. You want to make sure that you really answer to those 3 or 4 criteria. That's what they want to see. It's really great that you did this work before for, this company or that organization or what other agency, but we want to see what you really know. And back to the AI thing, that we've been getting proposals that we can guess, we can't prove, were probably generated with AI. And obviously, I haven't seen any prohibition against using AI, so I'm not going to comment on that. But I let you know that, I actually am friends with quite a few college professors who talk about the papers that they get from students that they know are written with AI, and they're garbage. And I would just tell you to really be judicious. I mean, you can use whatever tools you want to generate something, but you really should have somebody read over what you're submitting, make sure it answers it, make sure it's written in good English, and it's not, that's my little advice there. I mean, we all want to use technology, and it's great, and I'm sure it's a great tool. I will be honest with you. I am approaching 50. I am ready to say goodbye to this. I don't want to learn new things. I'm an analog girl in a digital world, so I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use any of it. Freaks me out. But I'm sure for those people who are savvy, it's amazing. But just remember, there's a person reading it with the technical knowledge and a technical understanding. And if they're reading it and it just looks like a bunch of fluff, it's not going to get you anywhere. So that's my advice there.
And thanks for the question, Greg. Just to add on, I think we had mentioned the importance of responding to RFIs and asking questions. I think asking the appropriate questions during solicitation periods, during Q&A periods is super important. Helps resolve ambiguities, provide clarifications. It may result in changes to the requirement or to portions of the evaluation, perhaps. So it's really going to aid in enhancing an offer's ability to respond and propose.
Thanks, Matt. Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say to make sure you're reading those proposal submission instructions, which includes the evaluation criteria, and make sure to follow those. Read it carefully.
Yeah,
Could make or break.
make sure you read what the VA is asking they want and how they want to look at it. That's great advice. Well, I think I'll turn it over, Pat. Let's turn it back to Alexa to close us out and thank our panelists, which I certainly do have a lot of appreciation for them and the work they're doing.
Thank you
Sounds
so
good.
much, GA. Really appreciate you all. Thank you for everybody for attending. Thank you, Visual Connections. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Greg. And I want to say particular thanks for the AI discussion. I think it's good to hear all different viewpoints, especially from a contracting officer's perspective. So I really do appreciate that. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see you at the next one. Please be on the lookout for it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.